All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to be doing today is color coding our own periodic table. You have already been given a blank periodic table that looks like this one, and we are going to be putting various information on there that'll be helpful for you as we move through our unit about the periodic table and the elements. Now, one thing I want to explain to you before we move forward is that the colors I have chosen are random. They really have no specific significance other than to help you differentiate elements, groups, and periods and things like that from each other. So if you have a column that is green, that does not mean the elements that are in it are green. And you're going to notice as you look at this periodic table, the one on my wall, the one in your science book, they're all going to be different colors, and that's going to be because we're looking at different information. That's totally okay. So I just don't want you to think that the colors that you see here are going to be universal or are going to be the colors of the actual elements. Now, the first thing we're going to be coding on our periodic table are the groups and the periods. Now, groups go up and down like this, and they're numbered 1 through 18. And then we also have periods, which come in rows, which go from left to right. So there are 18 groups, and there are 7 periods. So what I'd like you to do now is across the bottom, write groups, up the side, write periods, and then go ahead and number 1 through 18 each of those groups. Now, as you move forward, if you need to pause to catch up with me, that's totally fine, because I've done this all ahead of time because I know you don't want to watch me color. So go ahead and pause your video, get everything here written down, and then catch up with me in a minute. All right, now that you've labeled that, you're going to notice that information has gone away, and that's just so that you can focus on what I'm trying to get you to put down right now. So what we're going to be looking at here is the state of matter for our elements. The vast majority of our elements are solids, and that's okay. So we have some liquids, some gases. You notice we don't have any of those weird things like plasmas or anything like that. All of our elements are solid, liquid, or gas at room temperature. So we do have a couple gases. Those are going to be hydrogen, all of our noble gases over here, and then nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and chlorine are gases as well. So you're going to outline those in red. You're going to leave your solids alone because there's really no need to outline basically everything on the periodic table. Along with solids and liquids, solids and gases, we do have 2 liquids as well. We have mercury, which is actually a metal that's liquid in room temperature, and we have bromine, which is a non-metal that's liquid at room temperature. So if you need to pause and catch up with me, feel free to. We're going to move on and look at whether each of these elements is a metal, a metalloid, or a non-metal. Where did that paper go? Where did my notes go? Oh, okay. So, everything on here that's in yellow is a metal. So you're going to see that that is the vast majority of our elements are metals. So you're going to color those yellow. That's going to include the lanthanides and the actinides at the bottom. Our non-metals are hydrogen, and everything on the right-hand side of our zigzag here. You're going to outline your zigzag in black, and that's going to show us where the metals and non-metals separate. So, and everything that touches, or most of the things that touch those zigzags are metalloids, which means they have properties of both metals and nonmetals. The metalloids are conductors, like metals are, but they're not great conductors. So that's one of the characteristics that metals and metalloids have that are different. So go ahead and get those colored in. All right, so now this is where most of your coloring is going to happen. You are going to be labeling your groups. So you should have these numbered on your page. So the first group that we have over here is the alkali metals. I did those in pink. If you don't have a pink, that's fine. And as long as you have all of this information on your key, whatever color you need to use, as long as it matches here and here, you're in good shape. So on the alkali metals, you'll notice that hydrogen at the top is not pink. That's because hydrogen isn't an alkali metal. It doesn't act like they do. So hydrogen doesn't really have a group. Hydrogen kind of does its own thing. So alkali metals have 1 valence electron, and valence electrons are the outermost shell of electrons in the electron cloud. Alkali metals only have one electron in their valence shell, which makes them very, very, very reactive. In fact, later on, we're going to look at lithium, sodium, and potassium and see how they react with water. They're also really soft, shiny metals with low melting points and boiling points. The next column are the alkaline earth metals. And the alkaline earth metals have two valence electrons. They're also really reactive, not as reactive as the alkaline metals, but they are still pretty reactive. They are a silver or white metal, and they're pretty hard. The alkali metals are pretty soft. These are much harder, though. Now, moving forward, something I want you to realize is that the lanthanide series and the actinide series don't really belong down here. Really, they should go in right here, but honestly, it would just make our periodic table pretty awkward. So we decided to put it down here, otherwise it wouldn't really fit on a sheet of paper and be readable. So just remember these belong up here. And I've colored the lanthanide series green, the actinide series kind of a fuchsia-y color. And then up here, all these groups in orange that we have are transition metals. Now transition metals, you'll see that they're all in one sort of big block there together. And that's because they aren't as consistent with their properties as some of our other groups are. They have different numbers of valence electrons, they have different mixtures of uses and properties. They are typically hard, dense solids, with the exception of mercury here, which we already know is a liquid. And they tend to be very conductive because, again, they're metals. Moving on, we have the boron group, we have the carbon group, we have the nitrogen group, we have the oxygen group, also known as the chalcogens. Then we have halogens here in our group 17. These are very, very reactive, and they most like to react with the alkali metals. And typically, if you put a halogen and an alkali metal together, you're going to get a salt. The most common kind of salt, like table salt that we think of, is actually just sodium and chlorine. And the halogens are kind of unique in that they have elements that are all three states of matter, and we'll see that in a minute when we look at everything compiled together. Now, the last group we have here are the noble gases, and as it says in their name, they are all gases. And they aren't really reactive at all. That's because their outer shell is complete. They don't need anything else, so they're not looking for anything else. So that's the noble gases. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, take a second, pause, catch up with me, because I know this is a lot of coloring. And I do recommend that you cross-hatch it like this, don't color it in solid, because then you're not going to be able to tell the difference between your groups and your metals, metalloids, and nonmetals. Moving on, this is everything compiled together, which is, I think now you'll probably see why I separated things out. So you can look at this and you can figure out whether your element is a metal, a nonmetal, or a metalloid, whether it's a solid, a liquid, or a gas, and what group it's a part of. So make sure before you finish up that you do have your key updated. Otherwise, this information isn't really going to mean anything. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope that what we have created here is really helpful to you as we move on and learn about the periodic table of the elements. Bye.